Welcome back everyone! I hope you liked my last video where I printed and painted for the first time 1/6 scale model Invincible, because this time it's gonna be another amazing statue, and it's Green Lantern by CA3D. As always, at least for now, printed on FDM printer. As always, comment down below if you have any tips or tricks or any comments whatsoever. I'm open to criticism because I want to get better, and I will get better in order to bring you even more awesome videos in the future. Sit back, relax and enjoy the painting process. First, I started with priming all the parts of the model. I always use black primer from Vallejo. My DIY cardboard box for painting still performs amazing. The only thing I might do is flip around the filter. It's gotten filthy. After priming all the parts, I used zenithal highlight as base. Hand holding the lantern was the trickiest part of them all. The rest of the parts are pretty straightforward. Now that we have our base, we can start painting with colors. For most of Green Lantern's suit, I used flat green from Vallejo. His very high boots were painted with the same color as his chest. Both of them. His gloves I decided to paint with grey. It was pretty challenging to paint the glove in that orientation, with the lantern still connected to it, because at some point it simply broke. I used light green for all the energy pieces. As for the base, I used earth color. His pants are black, so here I used black paint and covered them completely. After that I came back to all the energy parts and covered with a second layer to make light green even brighter. For the lantern itself, I decided to use emerald color by Vallejo. I wasn't sure about this paint in the beginning, but when it dried out, I was okay with this choice. As you'll see in the end, I think it fits pretty well. As you can see here, the handles broke and I decided to go for a second layer, now that it's easier to cover everything. As for the face, in the beginning I went with a medium flesh tone. After that I came back with a lighter tone to give it a highlight. At some point in the process I understood that I was missing a part. It was the biggest energy piece, so I had to print it real quick and then prime it and give it zenithal highlight. Actually wait, I didn't do zenithal highlight here. I just went with white base because I knew I was gonna use light green. As soon as it dried out, I painted it with the same light green as the other energy pieces. After I was done painting with airbrush, I went to the table and started to paint with a brush. Here, the first thing I worked on was a chest piece. It consists of two colors, green and black. I decided not to do any masking and just painted by hand. When I was done with that, I painted his energy on the pants with the same light green. His neck area has a different color, and looking at the renders, it was very similar to the color of the lantern, so I used the same emerald. Coming back to his pants, I decided to cover a primer with black paint to make it even more darker. Painting energy around his glove was very time consuming, but the end result, as expected, amazing. Later I understood that emerald around his neck area didn't really work, so I used dark green instead. About his emblem, at first I used grey, the same grey as I used for his gloves, but it just didn't look right. We're gonna fix it later in the video. While that part is drying, I decided to work on his mask. First I painted the border, and then I painted everything inside, everything but the eyes. For his hair, it was another mistake since I chose to use light brown, but since I already started, I decided to complete the painting process and cover it with a darker color later. As soon as it dried out, I went ahead and fixed my mistake. To paint his emblem again and cover grey, I chose to use Deck 10. Zero regrets on this one. Coming back to the base, there were several energy pieces sticking out of it. Since I knew I was gonna use light green, I had to use white as a base before. There is an emblem on the lantern as well, so being smarter than the first time, I used Deck 10 right away. Later I covered it with a second layer. Coming back to the eyes, I do not remember exactly if I used white or Deck 10, but it was definitely one of the two. When white on the base dried out, I started to work with light green to cover it all. The last piece of the puzzle was to paint rocks on the energy. When I was done painting, it was time to assemble the model and look at the result. When I was done assembling it, I used gloss varnish for the finish, and at this point I call this model done. I want to thank everyone who stayed until this point in the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like, subscribe if you're not yet subscribed, and give me a shout out in the comments down below. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video.
At my command, layer by layer, build a life. Smooth the edges, sharpen the knife. Clean my nightmares under light. Brushstrokes whisper in the night. Colors bleed and shapes awake. Crafting heroes' hearts that